If someone was to ask you what the secret sauce of social media content would be, what would you say? Well, you're tuning in to find out the answer today, and that is engagement. The algorithms and social media thrive on what's called engagement. And today we're going to dive into how you get that really meaningful social interaction that the algorithms will reward your post for with more reach and with more brand awareness for you. But first, I'd love for you to download the worksheet to this because it's going to walk you through the funnels of every aspect of who you're talking to online. So essentially in marketing, what you're trying to do is bring people from the discovery and awareness phase of your brand down to considering you as the right choice to buy, down to making sure that people are deciding to actually buy from you. So the worksheet will walk you through that and each stage of what type of content you should be posting there to reach that engagement. So if you haven't downloaded the worksheet yet, it's in the link to the description of this video. And now we're going to dive into some really juicy ways that the algorithms look for meaningful social interaction and the ways that you can almost hack it in order to get that for you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So engagement truly is just about making sure you remember social media is there to serve up your actual content. So it's not a content creation tool. You know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're not where you're actually creating your content. It's where your content goes to get engaged with. The reason this is so important is because truly, if you create all your content on social media, it's almost like you're creating on rented space. You do not own the networks. They could change their algorithm at any second, which we've all seen them do, or they could even disappear tomorrow. And if you're relying strictly on all of your content creation on social media being the only place people can reach you or to interact with you, that's setting yourself up for failure. So this is why at Meet Edgar, we strongly believe in making sure social media is leading people to where they can find you off of social media. I know it's a little bit weird for a social media brand to be talking about this so much, but it is truly the way to succeed online. So make sure you have a blog or you have a podcast or you have a video that you can lead people to that they can find that off of the social networks. On the social networks, you're sharing those links, you're sharing those status updates, you're upcycling that content so people can actually engage with it. Now, engagement comes in a lot of different forms. Engagement is likes, follows, shares, comments, retweets, click-throughs. These are all forms of engagement that the algorithm is looking for. And truly, why the algorithm exists is a good reason. A lot of the times we all poo-poo it and we all hate it so much, and it's so easy to hate on the algorithm, right? But truly, it's there so that it's serving you up information it knows you want. So if these engagement signals are sending the algorithm information about what you want to see more of in your feed, it's a really good thing for your brand. Because if you've done the job of creating valuable content that people are engaging with, it's going to open up the pool of how many followers Facebook or Twitter or Instagram shows your content to in the future. That is the true reason you need to really focus on engagement. And I want you to kind of understand how each of these algorithms work. So the Facebook algorithm, the inventory and the signals that they are really looking for are all added up into what's called a prediction score. So this prediction score right now, the algorithm goes through about 3,000 changes a year. I know I exaggerate a lot, but that is actually not an exaggeration. That is a true one. Facebook really looks for things like comments and shares right now, way more than likes, way more than reactions, way more than anything else in order to determine how many people to show your status update to. So meaningful social interaction means not only just someone commenting with a thumbs up, it means they're actually taking the time to comment between people. So if one of your followers posted a comment on a blog post or a question that you asked, and then another follower replied to that comment, you have hit the engagement jackpot because that is a huge signal to Facebook that you're producing content that is going to get those interactions that they want. So thinking about this, making sure that we're really focusing on comment-worthy and share-worthy way more than just putting content out there is going to help you. Because if you put content out there and it doesn't get any engagement, no likes, no comments, that is a signal to the algorithm that, hey, a lot of people don't like seeing this content. Let's not show it to a big audience. So if someone has liked your page, they might not even see the status update you put out there if it's not getting a lot of engagement from your community. So that is why it's so important to focus on engagement. So Instagram's algorithm is interesting because what shows up in your followers' feed or in your feed is actually based really strongly on your own activity. So if you are going out there and liking a lot of dog pictures, it's going to show you a lot more dog pictures. So if one of your followers likes a lot of content that the Instagram algorithm sees is related to your content, they're more likely to serve it up in that feed. This all goes back to what we talk about all the time of knowing your followers so intimately that you know what they're clicking on, you know what they're liking, so you can produce content like that and have the algorithm serve it up to them. The interesting thing about Instagram is dwell time is something that's really packed into their algorithm. So what dwell time is it's actually the amount of time people stop and read your post. So if you are watching what's going on in Instagram for a lot of these bigger influencers, you'll notice they're actually starting to almost write mini blog posts in their Instagram captions. They'll be paragraphs long, right? One of the reasons that they're doing this is because they know if their audience stops and dwells on that content and actually consumes it, they are getting a little boost from the algorithm because it's a signal to the Instagram algorithm. Okay, people are stopping, people are reading, people are consuming, and they will then open that post up to more followers. So think about the ways that you can get people to really be curious about reading your caption, so hooking them in quickly, and then making sure you have a little bit meatier of a caption, or producing a really cool photograph that perhaps gets people's eyes to want to linger on it a little longer. And last, of course, Instagram, as it's owned by Facebook, does look for that interaction. So it's looking for those comments. It's looking for people to save your post to a collection. It's looking for people to share your post to their story. All of these things are signals to the algorithm that this is a valuable piece of content that should be shown to more of your followers. The algorithm, remember, starts out small. It shows your post to a small group of people who are following you. Depending upon the engagement that post gets, that is when Instagram or Facebook is going to open it up to more followers. Engagement, it really is your secret sauce. LinkedIn is next. So LinkedIn is interesting because it is much more of a social platform these days than we all give it credit for. It was purchased by Microsoft a few years ago. And when they did that, a lot of things started to change. And if you go onto LinkedIn these days, you'll notice that some things like inspirational quotes or personal stories are doing a lot better than they used to do. So people are on LinkedIn in order to socially connect with people there as well. So don't forget about LinkedIn for your company. What goes into the LinkedIn algorithm is relevancy a lot more than recency. So they are going to serve up in your feed, perhaps a post that was posted 5 days ago, because they know people don't necessarily check LinkedIn every single day in the way that we're trained to check Facebook every single day a lot of the time. So relevancy is actually really heavily weighed in the LinkedIn algorithm. So again, it goes back to knowing your audience persona, what is relevant to them. On LinkedIn, of course, you have a lot of people there to connect with other businesses. It's more of a business to business place. But remember, there are stakeholders and decision makers on LinkedIn who want to have relevant information served up to them of what's going on in the industry. So if you're sharing really relevant information that your followers want to keep up with, like curated content, like stories about how your business is doing, that stuff, it does really well in the LinkedIn algorithm. Engagement does go into the LinkedIn algorithm. So if people are commenting, and the truly curious thing is they actually have a human effect right now. I think this goes into a lot of the aspect that they are trying to build themselves up as a social network in this way that if they see a post doing pretty well and one that is kind of flagged as, hey, this one post is doing way better than a lot of the other posts, an actual human from LinkedIn will go in and read that post. If it has to do with some sort of behind the scenes content or human aspect, a lot of the times they're going to share this and promote it out because they want those personal stories on LinkedIn right now. So take these into consideration when you're producing content that you might have previously just put on Facebook. Try amplifying it on LinkedIn. Remember, social media marketing is all about experimentation. Try and see what your audience on LinkedIn wants. It can never hurt you to put more of yourself out there online for people to consume where they like to hang out. So Twitter's algorithm is super interesting because it is one of the most timely ones out there. So we all know Twitter is so fast paced. Every single second, tons and tons of links are being shared, thoughts are being shared. And if you log on to Twitter 2 minutes after you did previously, it's likely you're going to see a lot of different information. That's because Twitter does weigh timeliness way more. So that chronological order of when things are being shared. Instagram used to do this. I don't know if you remember back in the day, all of their posts were just chronologically served up to you. Currently, Twitter doesn't only serve up chronologically, but it's weighed heavier, mostly because Twitter is really good for sharing news, sharing current events, sharing articles, and they want to make sure those new trending things are served up first. You know us humans, we like to make sure that we are the first to know something, right? So other things, of course, relevancy, making sure that they're looking at what other links people are interacting with and seeing if that link matches their interests to show it in their feed or not, and authenticity. So Twitter has this rule now that says you cannot send the same tweet to the same Twitter account more than once. A lot of people got really frustrated with this, but if you flip your mindset and remind yourself they're doing this because they want to produce conversations. The algorithm is there to want to help you provide your followers variety and provide your followers actual authentic status updates. So if you are someone who reshares evergreen posts, which you know here at Meet Edgar, we always suggest you do, making sure you're not just sharing a status update once, but getting the most mileage out of it. So if you're sharing a blog post twice, you need to make sure that you're being authentic and changing up some of the wording on there. And the algorithm is truly looking to make sure your accounts are not repeating the same post over and over again. So super simple ways to do this are just thinking about telling different stories, thinking about adding in a question or a personal story about perhaps why you liked that post you're sharing or why you created this blog post. Anything to alter the language a little bit to give it that authenticity. All right, so as we went throughout this, I know that a lot of people are so focused on things like likes driving the algorithm or follower count driving things. But truly, if you drop the mindset of paying attention to these vanity metrics, these things that are just numbers, and you focus on the human elements, focus on the actual conversations between people, your engagement strategy is going to work so much better. So get it in your head that you're not really worried about follower numbers. You're not really worried about likes on the posts. You're worried about the human-to-human interaction that's happening. And it makes so much sense, right? It's social media. You want to keep it a social place. So when you're doing this, we harp on this all the time. You need to have a person in mind when you're writing. You're not writing status updates to have it really stuffy in just an academic form. Who is the person you're creating content for? This will get you more engagement if you have them in your head while you're writing. For example, at Meet Edgar, the people we care about are small businesses. They're solopreneurs. They're marketers who do not have a big marketing team, and they are overwhelmed and stressed about having to post on social media all the time. We write our content in that tone to inspire them to know that they can do that, to make sure they know we are here for them, to guide them in a strategy that's going to work to up-level their brand awareness on social media. We care so deeply about small businesses and getting this information out to them that is what makes our status updates shine. So what is it that your actual audience persona is caring about? If you have that in your mind while you're writing your status updates, your engagement is going to skyrocket. I also want you to remember that you need to share a little bit about why you connect to your followers. So were you in the shoes of where your followers were at one time? Did you overcome some struggles that they might be going through right now? Share that personal story. Our brains are hardwired to remember stories and to connect with other human stories. It is what the canon of literature is based on, right? Those books that have lasted in test of time, they are there because they go through this story arc. They provide tension of characters trying to achieve something. And we really like that. And the books we like the most are the ones that we identify with the characters. So be that character for your followers to identify with. Make sure you're telling that story of what you overcame that they can actually identify with, and your engagement will be better because they can easily see you as a person that they want to communicate with. Real life rules go into social media rules. Who do you like to communicate with in real life? People who have shared experiences with you. So utilize these kind of sociological aspects to your advantage. And truly think about what makes your audience special. What kind of relationship do you want to have with them? Write these things down. I know you think this is a waste of time, but I promise you, the more intimate you understand them, the more you're able to produce status updates that are going to be engagement worthy. And I really want you to remember that engagement is so important on social media because we think about it as retaining our customers, right? But what happens once someone buys your product or service? If you're not a monthly subscription, let's say, if they purchase something from you, what happens to them on social media now? They're probably not that interested in seeing your promos, but you still want to retain them in your community. You want to make sure that if you ever produce something in the future or pivot in the future, that they're going to be in your audience because you've built the trust, obviously, that they trust to purchase from you in the first place. But what happens after they've already made that purchase? It doesn't have a lot of interest to them to see just your promos, right? So making these engagement-worthy posts will retain your followers who you've already sold to. It is a way that they feel like they're still a part of the community, that you're bringing them in and they can share their voice. A lot of times this goes into ways that they're actually able to share why they love your product or service. And that just gives you that great social proof of other people seeing customers raving about your product or service. So engagement posts that people are excited to see and excited to actually answer questions you're asking and excited to read those blog posts that you're producing for them are the way that you're able to retain a lot of people in your community even after they've purchased from you. So if you are someone who's not getting a lot of comments right now, I also want to remind you that Facebook has a lot of different reactions. The algorithm weighs the heart reaction or the angry face reaction or the wow reaction way stronger than it weighs just that like. Because again, it is a really passive thing just to like a post. You have to hit one button. You have to take it a step further, and it's a much more active way of engaging with a post if you hover your mouse over it and click the heart button. So again, that leads in to the algorithm realizing this is meaningful social interaction. Someone took that extra step and that extra second to click that heart button. So ways that I recommend using this to your advantage is a lot of the times we do polls, right? But rather than just doing a poll with their actual poll feature, what if you said, hit the heart button if you agree with option A, hit the wow face button if you agree with option B. It trains your followers that you want them to engage with you. It also gives you that boost that Facebook is saying, okay, I see a lot of reactions happening on this post. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit of a boost in the algorithm. So get creative with the ways that you can utilize these things to your advantage to supercharge your reach on your posts. I also really want to remind you that if you're sharing links onto Facebook or onto Twitter, I need you to write status updates to go along with them. As we mentioned at the very start of this, we need you to make sure you're driving traffic to your site, right? So that means sharing your blog posts where people can click on them and be directed to your site. But if you're not taking the time to write a status update, the algorithm notices that. If you're just sharing a link without any sort of customization in telling people why they should read it or why you like it, or just giving them a nugget of curiosity of a pull quote from within that article, the algorithm notices that. They want that status update in there. It's a sign of authenticity, and it's a sign that people are actually going to engage with this post. So make sure you take that extra couple of minutes and customize any links that you're sharing. That engagement will go up, not only because it's reminding people there's a human who actually cares about the content they're serving up behind the screen, but it goes into really encouraging people to comment back to you. The brain also really works in questions all day long. So one of the reasons engagement works so well is because we are truly looking for ways to answer these questions. Think about it. It's going to be something like, hey, what should I eat for breakfast? Toast or a waffle? Your brain is doing this all day long. If you tune in and you pay super close attention, you'll notice your brain truly thinks in questions the majority of the time. So when you're thinking about the status updates to serve up, remind yourself that your audience is questioning if they should stop and read that status update as you're scrolling through. So how can you actually use this to your advantage in your status updates? Well, you can actually help your audience ask better questions about their life. You can help your audience ask those questions about what pain points they should solve in their life, how they can get a better outcome that they want in life. Think about the things that they want, get intimate with their personality, and guide the questions that are leading their thoughts all day long, and you'll see your engagement go up. It's really important that you think about that juxtaposition when you're doing questions like this too. So it's this idea that when we're in reality, we truly are wanting something different a lot of the time. We want a different outcome with our life. So when you're creating content on Facebook, think about where they are right now, where your followers are right now, and remind them what could be. That could be such a strong pull at our heartstrings because we are motivated to go out and get the best life that we could, right? So if you are reminding people that there is a better way, that there is something that can fix that pain point, it's likely people are going to talk back to you. Don't do it in an evil way, of course, but use this kind of psychological thing to your advantage. And if you are offering people really good advice, there's something in marketing called the law of reciprocity. If you give something to someone, it triggers something in our brain that they want to give something back. Often within marketing, that means they want to purchase from you. So that's why you see a lot of brands giving things away for free. So if you see people, giving away a free book, or if you see people giving away a lot of free content like this, it's because of that law of reciprocity. It's because we know that if we provide you something free, you are likely to feel like you want to give us something back. It's just the way that humans work. So use these psychological things to your advantage and remind yourself how the human brain works to provide people a better life. That last part is important. Don't use these things for evil. Use these things for good because you know your product or service can help save people time, bring people joy, or bring people a savings of money, whatever it is. Put that at the forefront. In the simplest form, creating engagement content means creating stuff that people want to talk about. It means getting out there and doing things like Googling icebreaker questions or interview questions. What are icebreaker and interview questions for? They're to get to know people. You should be getting to know your audience. A lot of the time, this is some of my favorite content to create because they're so hilarious. If you Google icebreaker questions, there's some really funny ones out there. Interview questions are really great because there are some really creative ones that people would love to kind of do some self-reflection on. And if you can provide someone a moment of self-reflection on social media, it'll bond them to your brand because that's something super appreciated by people. One of my favorite interview questions that I actually saw when I was doing this the other day was one that said, if you were a hamburger, what condiment would you be on that hamburger and why? That is typically a question you probably wouldn't think about asking your followers, but it would provide them with a really fun thought experiment to go through, right? These moments of joy that you can bring into your followers' lives matter so much for your social media community. I also want to remind you that there is this little thing called dark social. That is the social media content that people consume when they are not consuming it directly on your feed. That is your DMs, your direct messages, your instant messages on Facebook. These things go into the algorithm. So in some of your posts, try mixing up the language, DM me your answer. Or as we talked about a couple videos ago, one of the ways that you can start to validate your idea is to ask people, hey, would you be interested if I produced XYZ course? DM me your answer. This again goes into the fact that if you say DM me your answer, you're not going to get your ego hurt if no one comments on your post because no one sees if no one DMs you, right? And it's totally fine. You did an experiment and that's what social media is about. But if people do start to DM you, the algorithms use that information really heavily because they see that as an intimate form of communication. No one is going to DM you if they're not intimately interested in having that back and forth conversation. It is that dark social stuff that we forget about being so important for engagement. So remind people that your DMs exist. Create things like polls in your Instagram story. In your Instagram story, you can actually create a poll or ask a question with a text box for people to type their answer in. If people type that answer in, it goes into your DMs and you can then start a conversation from there. This is a great strategy to take. So think about the power behind this. You could ask people, hey, are you interested in learning XYZ? You could have that yes or no, type it in. Once those come to your DMs, if you have a course that's helpful for learning that, the people who said yes, DM them that course to sell through the more intimate form of communication. Social media is a cool machine when you start to use it to your advantage. People really share content that they identify with too. So we've been talking a lot about this content that is more conversational, but identity content is super powerful. If you can make your followers say, yes, oh my gosh, I feel that way too, they are more likely to hit that share button on the post. Because when you think about it, when someone shares something from your social media page into their story or from your Facebook page onto their wall, why are they sharing it? It is because it speaks to their identity. They are saying this piece of content says something about me that I want my followers, my friends, my family to know. So again, it goes back to really intimately knowing who you are speaking to and what they identify with in order for them to be compelled to share it to their page. You know me, I love inspirational things. If I see an inspirational quote, I might share it to my page. If someone else in your family hates inspirational quotes and they see an inspirational quote, they're not going to share it to their page, right? It goes into knowing who you're producing content for and what they're going to identify with and how you can use this identity marketing to your advantage. When you're thinking about shareable content, I also want to remind you that it's good to produce stuff that's unbranded to promote sharing. Because if I'm going to share, let's say, an inspirational quote onto my own Facebook page, I do not want it to be branded with a bunch of Edgar stuff, right? I want it to be branded in a beautiful fashion. Perhaps I could use this Edgar pink here and just do the quote over it, but I don't have the Edgar logo on it. I don't have anything that says this is a branded piece of content. When they share it, your Facebook page name is still going to be appended to that post they're sharing, but it's more likely that they're not going to share a piece of really branded content, right? So mix it up. Have your logo on some things. Of course, we want that brand awareness and we want that recognizability to be in the forefront, but remind yourself that to get people to share content, it can't always be super branded. If you are doing a URL in every single post, so if you are providing people a URL to your YouTube channel, a URL to your podcast, a URL to your blog, Facebook and Twitter are going, or not Twitter, Twitter's a little different. Facebook is going to see that in the way that you are leading people off of Facebook to a different platform. They do not like that. They have a really vested interest in keeping people in their platform. So you need to make sure you're mixing up your posts. Some can have URLs in them. Of course, please share your blog posts, please share pages to your pricing page, stuff like that. But make sure that you're mixing in video posts. You're mixing in content that's just text. You're mixing in photos with no URL in between these things. Facebook, Instagram, all of these algorithms want to keep people within their platform consuming content on the platform there. So if you have a really well-researched blog post, could you perhaps get some pull quotes from within that blog post and post them as text-only tips or post them as a tip on the background of a beautiful Canva outline? You see what I'm saying there? Make sure you're mixing up the medium so that you're not punished by the algorithms in that way. I also want to remind you that it's way easier to join a conversation than to start one. So the reason that this is important and how I like to describe this is if you're at a party, let's say, if you are just going to go in and join a little group of people who are already talking, it's way easier to do that than to form your own group and to form your own conversation, right? Same on social media. How this applies is if you see a trending article, something that is getting a lot of action on social media already, share that to your own page. The conversation has already been started. Trending articles mean people want to talk about them. One way I like to identify trending articles is there's this site called BuzzSumo. If you go to BuzzSumo, you can actually type in a keyword. So for me, perhaps I would type in social media. It's going to show me the top trending articles on each network that has to do with the keyword social media. I can find one that I think my followers would truly like to go ahead and engage with. I will go ahead and share that onto my Facebook page or onto my Twitter account, and the conversation will likely happen very quickly because it's already been proven that other people are sharing this, other people are commenting on this. So look for trending articles going on in your industry and curate those to get that conversation going. I also want to remind you the power of emojis. Guys, there are 700 million emojis used on Facebook posts every single day. And this is a stat from 2019, so it could be even more by now. But emojis are really powerful for engagement because they can provide a lot of tone to your post. If you write something and you're not sure that the tone is coming across in the right way, you could add in an emoji. Think about the fire emoji to bring energy to the post. Think about the heart emoji to bring love to the post, the winking emoji to give it a little cheeky vibe. These things give your post tone. A lot of the time in interaction in real life, the way that we're able to tell what someone is thinking or how someone's trying to convey a piece of information to us is with these nonverbal cues. It's with the tone of our voice. It's with our hand gestures. These emojis are kind of like that on social media. If you have never tried using an emoji to produce your tone before, try slowly adding some in. It's a really fun way just to give your personality into your status updates a little more. I also want to talk about this idea of stickies. So what are stickies? They are these things that don't necessarily have to do with your brand. They have to do with you. And why this is so important is because people are going to remember these things. And when they see them out in the world, it's going to trigger your brand in their mind. Some examples of people who use stickies really well are people like Pat Flynn. He's a podcaster as well as just kind of a media influencer. And he talks about his love for Back to the Future a lot. He also talks about his wife April's love for the Backstreet Boys. These are two things that don't have to do with his brand very much, but he brings them up often enough that when people see things like Back to the Future or the Backstreet Boys out in the real world, they will actually take a picture and send it to him, or take a picture and tag him in it because they know these things are about him. Other brands that do this well are this makeup brand called Glossier. They actually have this branded pink called Glossier Pink that when people see that pink in a sunset, they'll take a picture and they'll send it to the brand. It is triggering that brand affinity. So what are these stickies for you? It could be something as simple as your dog. Do you have a dog that you really love? If you talk about it enough, when someone sees that type of dog out in the wild, it's likely they'll think of your brand and they might even tag you in a post on social, just getting that engagement rate up. So share these more personality, softer aspects of your social media and get 3 to 4 stickies, these like personality sticky points to add into your posts once in a while. Truly, engagement and idea validation go hand in hand. So as you are pivoting your business, remind yourself that social media is a great place to start doing market research, asking questions so that you can identify and develop your audience persona. And this idea validation is simply just asking your customers what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and identifying ways that you can help fix them. It is a two-way street. So really go in and remind yourself that doing things like live streams like this can engage your customers because they get to know your personality, they get to know your tone of voice, and they get to see the person behind the status updates that are going out there. This makes it more likely they'll feel more comfortable to replying to you in the future. So if you've never tried a live stream before, get brave. I promise it's not as scary as you're building it up in your head to be. It's a place that people really love to come to get to know the face behind the brand. If you are going to do stuff on social media, like ask questions, please do not post and ghost. I know that ghosting is really trendy right now for people, but posting and ghosting is not cool. I promise you that. So when you're taking the time to write a post that has a question, make sure you set aside time at the end of your day to go in and connect with people, to answer questions around your topic that you're posting. One way to do this is to hop onto Instagram and what I like to call the click to connect strategy. So what's the click to connect strategy? Well, it's using the Instagram Explore feature and going on there to search like-minded hashtags that have to do with your audience persona. Click into that hashtag and you will see all the other posts that have been hashtagged with that hashtag. And you can then start going in and replying to people who have commented on there. You should do this right after you posted something on social media, on your Instagram page. People will get curious if you're providing valuable answers to them, then they might go check out your handle. They'll see a post there that speaks to their identity because you're in a like-minded hashtag, and it's more likely that they'll engage with you and perhaps follow you. These things do take a little bit of time, but it is worth it because there is a power of getting one follower. That power comes in when you get the right follower. Slowly building up a strong, engaged audience is way better than getting a lot of fake followers just to have a big number. The engagement and the algorithm rates are telling us that more than ever now. So please take that to heart. I truly mean it. And we've truly seen it work for brands over and over again. I also want to remind you that you don't just have to do this on Instagram. You can go onto Facebook, you can go onto Twitter, and you can start to engage with people in a similar niche. Get onto other pages and comment as your page. Get into Facebook groups and comment as your page with really helpful information. Did someone in a Facebook group ask a question that you wrote a blog post on? Share that blog post with them. It will give your brand a bigger reach, and that one-on-one connection that they see your brand actually taking the time to speak to them as a human, and they'll be reminded that you don't think of them just as a follower, right? You don't want your followers ever to think that they are just a number. You want them to think that they are human. One way to do this is to make sure your first interaction with them is a one-to-one communication. This is truly powerful if you take the time to do it. And I recommend batching your engagement. That means after you post, give yourself 20-minute period to go in and do this on all of the networks. Batching it and not just leaving it for a time that I'll do it in the 5 minutes here or the 5 minutes there. This is how you build up an engaged community. You also can think about doing things to get engagement like contests and giveaways. So if you've never run a contest before, they're really simple to do. You know, you could just produce like a survey perhaps and say, we're going to pick one random winner to give away a free year subscription to XYZ. Or if you're a product-based business, could you do a giveaway and produce engagement by saying, hey, tag a friend who inspires you, that has to do with something with your brand, of course, or, you know, share a photo of XYZ that has to do with your brand. Or follow us on Instagram or tag a photo with this hashtag and we'll pick one winner to give away this with. These things are so great because you know we all like swag. You love that swag stuff, even if it doesn't have to do with anything you need. It's fun to give free stuff. So these types of posts where you're asking people to enter a contest or do a giveaway, where they're actually tagging friends and getting that kind of back and forth communication or using a brand specific hashtag can be a huge engagement boost for you. I also really encourage you to do identity posts with tags. So if you're putting a quote out there, you could say, hey, tag a person who reminds you of this. This is a great way to get people to actually start tagging their friends who are likely similar audience personas who are going to engage with your content in the same way that existing follower already does. There is true power in that. Also, remind yourself to post a poll. Polls are a really great way for you to start getting that engagement because it's something that people are already trained to participate in. So use the poll features on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram to remind people that you want their feedback. Play trivia. As humans, we want to always close a curiosity gap that we have. So if you ask a trivia question that someone doesn't know, their brain is almost trained to say, hey, I want to know that answer. And it's likely that they'll actually engage with the post and they'll start to guess. They'll come back to your page to see the answer if you do it the next day. So these things are ways to train people to come to your page and not just wait for the post to show up in their feed. Get creative with it. It does not always have to be brand specific posts that are offering discounts or leading people to a valuable nugget of information. I know we harp so much on the value add of social media and making sure you're educating your community, but you could truly just be playing this fun game, and that is a value add for your followers' day. Remember, it goes into making sure that you're retaining the followers you have in a place that's really fun for them to hang out in. Last but not least here, we're going over this concept that has kind of been the thread throughout all of Pivot Week here, and that's that people think they want products and services. You think people want products and services, but what people actually want is the feeling that product or service gives them. It's that feeling they're going to get, or it's that time saving they're going to get. That is truly what's driving them, that outcome that they're going to get by purchasing your product or service. So when you're going through this, it's really important that you're not working twice as hard just to put your features out there, but you're actually putting yourself in there. This is going to be way more productive than just producing social media posts that are how-tos, or just producing social media posts that are meant to educate but not invite that meaningful social interaction in. Do not think you have to work twice as hard and get that many status updates out there when the algorithm could actually do the work for you if you're putting status updates out there that get people emotionally involved, get people excited to talk to another human back and forth. This will give your post a bigger reach and will actually be far more beneficial to your overall social media strategy if you're getting engagement rather than posting twice as often. Your purpose for creating this content has to be so strong and so clear that who you are serving is a real human, and that real human is going to get a benefit from what you're giving them. Don't make people feel like they have to snoop behind the medicine cabinet to see who the real human they're talking to is, right? I know you know what I'm talking about. If you go to a friend's house for dinner and you go to the bathroom, if you don't know that friend, sometimes you'll open their medicine cabinet to see what they're all about, right? Those are the feelings that people get when you do not put yourself into your social media content. They want to know who they're talking to. They want to know, if I'm going to comment on this post, who's reading it? These things matter to our human brains. So make sure you're thinking about this when you're writing your status updates. And truly, the more you open up and share personal stories, embarrassing stories, successes, failures, these things then give your followers permission to open up in the same way. The more people you can give permission to open up about their lives, it'll just invite more and more followers to do the same. And that's where social interaction comes from. That's the moment that your followers want to start communicating between each other, because they see themselves in other people's comments. They see themselves in those stories that are being told, and they want to join the conversation. It is so important to understand these psychological aspects of how the human brain works. And it's not that hard because we do it every day in real life. So take these concepts and stop pretending like you can't have this meaningful social interaction on social media. It's truly just you opening up and sharing these sides of yourself. So get the most out of who you are by putting it out there online, by getting a little bit brave about it, and by giving your followers permission to do the same thing. Truly, engagement does translate to sales, guys, because the more you can get that engagement, the more people are going to trust you. And as we spoke about yesterday in the sales webinar, we went over the fact that when people trust you, they're much more likely to buy from you. Awesome. So I hope you guys are inspired to get on out there and engage with your social media followers. Pivot Project, we have one more day tomorrow. This has been a blast for us, and we would love to know how your pivots are going. So go ahead and let us know either in the comments below, or we are at @meetedgar on Twitter and on Instagram, and we are super stoked to hear from you always. So let us know there. support@meetedgar.com is where you can go ahead and reach us. And please show up tomorrow. It is our last day, so you know I'm going to bring the energy, and you know I'm going to be excited to hang out with you guys again. Have a really great rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow.